The best housing market fix that nobody's talking about, cut property taxes. Hi, everybody. I'm Dagan McDowell in for Terry Keenan, and welcome to Cashin' In. Let's get the stock smarts. Our Cashin' In crew this week, Wayne Rogers, Jonathan Honig, and Jonas Max Ferris, along with Peter Schiff, president of Euro Pacific Capital and the author of Crash Proof. We're also joined by Craig Smith, president and CEO of Swiss America Trading Corporation. Welcome, everybody. Well, Jonathan, to you first. Help fix housing by slashing people's property taxes.
Yeah, well, Dagan, cutting taxes in general stimulates economic growth. I mean, personally, I'd rather see the income tax cut because that's a tax on production versus the property tax, which is a tax on consumption. But yeah, I mean, the more you can reduce the tax burden on Americans, rich and poor, the more you're going to see this economy get back on track. Wayne,
you're Mr. Real Estate around here. Do you think that this would help confidence at least a bit among home buyers?
Well, the part that's crazy about Jonathan's reasoning, if I may say so, is the fact that when property values go down, the assessment goes down and your taxes go down. This is an automatic thing. In other words, when the assessor comes out at times like this, when there are foreclosures, things like that, your property taxes are going to go down anyway. And by the way, if they totally take away the property taxes, which support the school systems and all of the other things that in your state and your county and your local place are, then your property value is going to go down even more because all of those services are gone. So it's crazy.
Well, Craig, do you buy that, though? Because there is movement afoot, particularly down in Florida, to cut people's property taxes by taking away revenue from the school system.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Jonathan. I think if you're going to cut taxes, you should cut income taxes. But I also agree with Wayne. My big concern is if you cut property taxes and you lose good fire services, good police services, could you, on the other side, see interest premiums go up on insuring your home? I think the best bet to fix the housing market is to help people that can truly afford their houses and help the people that get out of the houses they can't afford to carry.
Well, Peter, wouldn't cutting property taxes help people afford those homes, or even prospective buyers afford a home?
Well, you know, unfortunately, we're probably more likely to see property taxes rise because of falling values. But, you know, you've got to look at all the other costs associated with home ownership that are rising. You've got mortgage rates resetting higher. You've got increases in utilities, in insurance, in maintenance. And, of course, homes are now depreciating in value, not appreciating. And so depreciation adds to the cost of home ownership. And new home buyers are facing higher, tighter lending standards. They actually have to come up with down payments now. So there's so many things working to bring home prices down that even if they could get a break on their property taxes, it wouldn't amount to enough to stop the slide in home prices, and that's what has to happen.
I don't buy the assessments are going up. I think Wayne was correct about tax assessments ultimately will go down. You know, homes are the most undertaxed asset I can think of in the world. There's already at least a dozen ridiculous benefits to buying a home. It's why we got into a housing bubble in the first place. The first $200,000 you make selling a home, tax-free. Why? You don't do that with stocks. You get to deduct up to $1.1 million in mortgage and home equity interest. What kind of ridiculous deduction is that? You know, the president had a very good policy where he sent a group out and they discovered this mortgage deduction is ridiculous. And now you're talking about adding more deductions and higher limits, say, on Fannie, is only going to somehow, create another bubble in housing? I think there's been too many tax breaks. We made the home too much the American dream, and that was the problem. So let's not give more of the hair of the dog that bits you to solve this problem.
Yeah, but, you know, the reason property taxes are going to have to go up is because the values are falling. The governments are going to be strapped with budget problems. They're going to have to try to raise taxes to make up for the loss in revenue from lower home values. That's the problem.
But, Jonathan, it is about confidence here, and if even something small like cutting property taxes on the margin gives people a lift and makes them feel a little bit more comfortable about buying a home, why is that a bad thing?
Well, Dagan, I don't think it's the government's responsibility to kind of micromanage the property market. And I think, to some extent, as Peter's pointed out,
Jonathan, isn't it the most micromanaged part of the economy? How many government policies already exist? You can even deduct the property tax. There's so much government involvement. Fannie, Freddie,
Yeah, well, and I'm against all that as well. I mean, if property prices need to correct, I think the government should get out of the way and let them correct. And unfortunately, it's all these little interventions into the free property market that I think oftentimes build up the bubble that we've experienced these last couple of weeks.
The fact that mortgage interest has been deductible has artificially propped up home prices for generations. The real benefit of that tax break was for the people who owned the houses years and years ago when the break was first introduced. But all it's done since then is make home prices artificially high. and more expensive. We ought to abolish the deductibility of mortgage interest and have a real home fund.
All right, but Craig, that's not. Go ahead. That's not in the cards right now. It's about rescuing housing.
Well, I don't think we're dealing with the real issue here, Dagan. I mean, the reality is it's not a birthright in America to own a home. And if you can afford one, you should be able to buy one. If you can put the proper amount of money down and make your payments. If you can't, you shouldn't own a home. And I don't think it's the government's responsibility to make sure that everybody in America owns a home. And I think it's time that we allow free market principles to reign in the housing market, get the weak hands out, let the market drop. It will come back. We saw this happen in the late 80s, and the market came back wonderfully in the next 2 decades. So let's just leave the market alone and let it correct.
Amen.
But, Wayne, the government's wading deeper and deeper by the day into this mess trying to fix it. Why not do a little bit with property taxes?
No. First of all, they're two separate subjects. The tax system is a totally separate subject from trying to fix the housing mess. So you shouldn't mix them. This is not a question that it should be mixed up. As I said at first, the assessed value takes care of that. Whatever the assessment is, you have to change the whole tax system if you're going to do that. The housing fix of what's going on in the housing market is a totally separate question. That has to do with the derivatives market. It has to do with the fact that loans were made, passed out, the borrower and the lender no longer know who each other are. It was a bad lending practice. That's a whole other subject. You want to talk about the housing mess, this should not be the subject. Okay,
Wayne, and you can always demand a reassessment on your taxes if anybody's interested. Thanks, fellas.
That is correct.
Don't forget, you can catch this Cashin crew every Monday on Your World.